The Obama administration is releasing an ambitious roadmap to slash the global spread of AIDS by getting more people treated and more quickly. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton says the plan shows her goal of an AIDS-free generation is within reach. Well, today is World AIDS Day, and for more on the global campaign against the deadly virus, I'm joined by Bill Bowtell, Executive Director of Pacific Friends of the Global Fund to Fight AIDS. Mr Bowtell, thanks very much for joining us today on Weekend Breakfast. The theme of this year's World AIDS Day is getting to zero. Just how realistic is that prospect, considering around 2.5 million people worldwide were infected with HIV just last year?
Well, we are much closer to that objective than we were 10 years ago. And even though those numbers you quote are high, 2.5 million, they're down considerably, almost 20% on the new HIV infection rate around the world 10 years ago. So I'm cautiously optimistic we are well on the way to coming to the end of the beginning of this problem and getting towards the beginning of the end of it in the next generation or so. Certainly, we are very close to being able to realise the goal of no new HIV infections amongst young children, babies being born with HIV. Presently about 350,000 children are born each year with HIV. If we can extend treatment to their mothers and to those children, we could certainly bring about the reduction of that number to almost zero in the next few years.
Looking at recent figures from Australia, there were 1,137 new infections in 2011. That's an 8% rise from 2010. What more needs to be done to get the message across?
Well, it's an unacceptable rise. It shouldn't be going up at that rate. And the great achievement to be announced this World AIDS Day in New South Wales, the Minister for Health there, the New South Wales Government is announcing for the first time targets for the reduction of HIV infection rates in New South Wales. And targets, the setting of targets is absolutely critical if we are going to bring down that rising rate of new infections in Australia. Now, we are coming off a low base. We don't have anything like the problem of the developing world in Australia. We got on top of this a long time ago. But complacency sets in. A new generation of young people have to be educated about the facts of HIV transmission, that you don't want to get it, that even though it's no longer a death sentence, you don't want to be HIV positive and have to go into treatment. So the setting of targets is the critical step, and I really do congratulate New South Wales and Minister Skinner for announcing that new strategy in Sydney today.
And it's important, we just saw pictures there of the Sydney Opera House coloured in red light and fireworks going off to highlight World AIDS Day. It's things like that that really, I suppose, are needed to keep getting that message across, because as you say, after 30 years, some people may be becoming complacent.
Yes, we veer between complacency on one side of it and a despair that there's nothing we can do about it. There is no need for despair. In fact, I'm personally very hopeful that we have the right strategies in place now to bring about further great reductions in HIV transmission. Certainly the research is starting to look very good. A lot of work is being done in Australia and internationally about whether we can look at a so-called functional cure or a vaccine, and the investment in that research is starting to pay off. So we are moving in the right direction. However, in the world, on World AIDS Day today, there are still 8 million people who should be on treatment but who have no access to it, and that's 8 million too many. If we can put those pills in the mouths of those people who require treatment, that's good for them, but also because they become less infectious if they're on treatment, that's good for the world as well. The other side of it, of course, is we do have to be very, very aware of the need to educate young people about preventing transmission in the first place. Prevention is cheaper than cure. So young people, each new generation, has to be made well aware by schools, by parents, by their peers, to protect themselves by using condoms, to have access to clean needles and so on. All of these things coming together means that we can really start thinking about the eventual eradication of HIV in the next generation.
And it's also access to quick testing as well, because I suppose a lot of people, they're not always going to get tested, but there are certain tests that you can be done within 24 hours, but they're not available in many countries.
Yes, well, and including Australia, and I think that has to change as well. What's happened in Australia and other developed countries is that the time from initial infection, when a person is infected with HIV, to their eventual diagnosis, when they go to a doctor or a clinic to be tested, has stretched out to about 4 years. And that's got to be brought down, because the sooner people know their status, the sooner they know whether they're HIV or not, the sooner they can consider whether to go on treatment, and they can get the benefits of treatment for themselves. They become less of a problem or a risk of transmission for others. So we've got to reduce this time from infection to diagnosis. In the United States, they have moved to enable rapid testing kits to be available at point of care, and I think we have to consider now in Australia to move to that situation as well. That's better for individuals, it's better for the country.
Okay, Bill Bowtell from the Pacific Friends of the Global Fund to Fight AIDS, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Well, the coffee industry